howdy, hey, awesome people of the internet, Wolfman47 here. So it's time for another Let's Talk About Such and Such Verse video, and decided that this time it should be Stephen King. Now, I previously talked about a Stephen King film called The Monkey earlier this year, and at the time I didn't really feel like I was ready to sort of talk about all of his other films and other things that I've seen of his, but today I feel like I can, considering the release of another film that's based on one of his works. Obviously, we all know who Stephen King is, and for those of you that don't, I'll explain now. So he's a writer, he's a filmmaker, he's an actor, and he's got sons that are following his footsteps into becoming their own sort of authors and so forth. The genre he tends to stick with for the most part is horror, but he does do some other genres as well. And usually when he writes his books and so forth, they're usually pretty good, even if some of them can be quite silly, over the top, and predictable in the sense that they're in certain settings and everything. Yeah. Now, a lot of his work has been adapted to film, and a lot of his work has also been adapted into small screen miniseries. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, I'm only really going to be focusing on one miniseries, and the rest are going to be films. Only because, of all the miniseries I've seen, I've only seen the one I remember most is one that you all know, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then there's like a couple of others I've seen as well, but I can't for the life of me remember what they're called yeah, I just remember some scenes in them, and I think some people have already talked about them already. So yeah, I'm just going to focus on the one miniseries and the rest of the films. And the miniseries I'm going to talk about is obviously Stephen King's It. Now, this one is, of course, the Tim Curry one, where Tim Curry is Pennywise doing his shtick. Everyone knows the scene where he goes, aha, 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 aha. Yep. Even though it's released kind of nowadays as if it's like its own feature film, it kind of feels like it's trying to pack in a little bit too much into a short space of time. Like, unlike the two-part film adaptation, which I'll talk about later. But other than that, I think it's okay for what it is. I don't think it's all that scary. To be honest, most of the miniseries that are based on Stephen King's work aren't really scary compared to the feature films, which in my opinion feel like they've been put more effort into it. But yeah, it is what it is. You all know the scene. It's a class. It's still a classic, and I thought it was okay. It's not my favorite adaptation, but it's okay. So I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10, out of respect for Tim Curry, because I do like Tim Curry as an actor, and I know he's not doing too well these days, but I hope I get to hear him do more stuff in the future, but we shall see. So next is Carrie, and this is the 1976 film I've seen, not the god-awful remake that I heard here was not very good. So this was part of a Blu-ray collection that I bought some time ago that contained a bunch of Stephen King films together, some of his most well-known ones, and this was like one of two that was distributed by MGM at the time, when they were still sort of like being treated as a sort of main distributor nowadays, whereas nowadays they are owned by Amazon, and therefore a lot of their stuff is on Amazon's platform, Prime Video. But anyway, so Carrie, about this girl who is sort of bullied at school and everything, and she ends up having this sort of power that makes people kill themselves and so forth. And for what it is, a horror, it's pretty much as typical of a 70s horror as you can get. You know, blood, gore, all the usual sort of high schoolers doing this stuff and everything. Obviously, at the time, it's probably was quite iconic and original and so forth. But to me, after seeing so many 70s and 80s horrors now, particularly in the slasher genre, it's okay. I think it's a good, and I definitely think it's a hell of a lot better than the remake, even though I've never seen the remake, so I wouldn't know. So I'm also gonna give it a 7 out of 10. So now we come to perhaps his most infamous film adaptation, which is of course The Shining. Now I say infamous because, as we all know, this was made by Stanley Kubrick. It was a film that Stephen King did submit a script for, but Stanley Kubrick threw it in the trash and did his own version of it, because when you got Stanley Kubrick making the film, he basically knows what he's doing. He's got his vision, does millions of takes, and although reports are very conflicted as to how things played out when this film was made, I'm of the opinion that the film exists, it was made, and the actors and people behind it just want to forget about what happened and move on because of how they were treated and everything. So yeah, that aside, I think it's a very good film. I will admit, seeing all seeing all the a person sort of descend into madness, it can be particularly terrifying. Jack Nicholson is of course a very beloved actor, and having him sort of descend into madness, he's kind of the sort of actor that's able to do that very very well. And he's perhaps the best part of the film. Alongside the sort of visions he has, the sort of things that go on in the Overlook Hotel and everything, and I really, really did enjoy it. However, I can't get over what happened behind the scenes, and I know that was kind of a bit of a plot point when it appeared in the film Ready Player One, and I know that there's a sort of sequel kind of story that I'm going to talk about a little bit later, as well as a kind of sort of documentary, but I'm not going to review that. I'm just going to focus on this. So I'm going to give The Shining, which I'm just going to call Stanley Kubrick's Shining, not Stephen King's Shining, because it's pretty much more Stanley Kubrick than Stephen King's version, although he did his own miniseries. Anyway, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, because it's good, but if you're wanting typical Stephen King stuff, you're not going to get it with this one. So you're probably better off with the miniseries. But having said that, I know the miniseries isn't exactly that great, because it's one of those times when an author takes charge of something so much that he kind of forgets that not everything translates well to screen. But enough about that. So the latest Stephen King film I saw recently is one called Christine. And I first heard of this through Futurama, where they spent an episode sort of having this car robot that curses Bender into becoming a sort of werecar, and it's up to Flying Leader to solve the mystery and try and stop it from causing any more chaos. Obviously, doing their own version of it. And seeing this film, it's kind of basically playing on the idea of what would happen if instead of a werewolf, it's a car that curses people into them becoming like these demonic cars and everything. And I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, because I was in there thinking it was going to be exactly like the Futurama episode, but no, it actually turned out to be quite something. And the whole thing about playing bad to the bone beginning to end kind of sets the tone of the film throughout, because it's quite literally about a car that's bad to the bone. So yeah. So Christine, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, because I really enjoyed it. Now, this next one, Stand By Me, is perhaps not well known for being a horror film as such, but I do know it's about 3 boys that come onto this railroad and sort of go on a journey or something. I'm honestly just going by what I remember of it, because it was such a long time ago since I last saw this, and I've got the Blu-ray of it somewhere, so I should have really watched it before doing this video. But anyway, doesn't matter. So yeah, I don't remember it too well, but I know it's not your traditional Stephen King film. If you're wanting a horror, you're not going to get it with this one, from what I remember. But from what I remember, I do think it was okay, just not the best Stephen King thing I've seen. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Next is Misery. So this film is a lot of things. It can be portrayed as seeing these miserable things happen and everything, but I think it's one of those films that you just don't know what's going to happen. So in the film, you got this famous author called James Caan, played by James Caan, who has an accident, and he ends up in this house that's where his so-called biggest fan, called Misery, played by Kathy Bates, who in my opinion is a great actress when it comes to horror. She's in a lot of horror things, particularly American Horror Story. she is the biggest fan of his work, and is desperate to make him get better, but will not let him leave until he comes up with a better story for the character of Misery in one of his books. There's lots of people trying to find him and try and bring him back to society, but Misery is just keeping locked out of bay, and despite having a broken leg, he does whatever he can to try and get out, even if it means actually killing Misery herself, the lady. So yeah, it's basically a classic. What would happen if you had an accident, got kidnapped, and you have been forced to do something before you're allowed to leave, kind of story. And I think it was probably like one of the first times a story like that came into existence. And to my knowledge, I'm not sure if there's like any other sort of stories like that, but this is perhaps the most well known. But yeah, it's as miserable as you can get. So Misery lives up to its name, and I do like it. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Bringing us on to The Shawshank Redemption, which I guess you could call it a drama because it's not really that scary, but it has a lot of well-known people in it. The people I remember most are, of course, Clancy Brown, who plays one of the guards, and this was long before the days of his voice acting days when he was Mr. Krabs and Lex Luthor, and also Morgan Freeman, who again still kind of youngish at this point, and yeah, up and coming and so forth. Oh, hold on.
Eventually.
Sorry about that. A delivery arrived. So anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah. So Shawshank Redemption. It's you got these prisoners that go into a prison. They are. It kind of talks about prison life in a way. And there's these two guys that are sort of, or this one guy that's trying to work on a way to escape and comes up with a very clever way. The warden's a bit of a dickhead. And yeah, it's a good film. It's definitely different from Stephen King, but it's like a drama that's kind of is treated and done right. So yeah, and I really did enjoy it. And I'm just gonna have a drink before I give my rating. Yeah. Yep. So I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 as well. So excuse me. Next is The Green Mile. So this is one that stars the legendary Tom Hanks and others. In this film, which is again about prison life, away they come across this. These prison guards follow this sort of rule where all these people are coming in on death row, and every prisoner is basically killed by electrocution. One of the guards is a bit of a dick, and one time they have a guy that's been brought in that was accused of killing a woman, and it turns out this guy who's black, and there's a sort of racial thing going on in there as well. It's revealed that he has the ability to heal wounds and bring things to life, but everyone sort of mistreats him and sort of treats him wrong and everything, and it gets to a point where the guards are just desperate to sort of prove that he is innocent and everything. Eventually, they sort of try and convince the warden to try and heal stuff, and the guy heals his wife, and even the warden's kind of like just not sure what to make of it. But eventually, spoiler alert, the guy just decides that even though he is considered innocent, the people think he's not innocent, and although the guards are very emotional about it, they still go through with the whole death sentence because that's what he wanted, and that's what he did. And then the Tom Hanks guy is cursed, and Tom Hanks guy is punished by him spiritually because he basically becomes immortal. So yeah. So The Green Mile is a very emotional film, but a lovely film as well, and one that definitely sort of tackles racism in a very interesting way. And yeah, I just really enjoy it. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 as well. So many years later, we'd get the 2-part adaptation of it. So I'm going to talk about the first part first. So this came out around the time when Stranger Things was just becoming a thing. So, and it actually stars one of the actors in the film, Finn Wolfhard, and lots of other young actors and actresses who have also been in other things as well. Yep. So this is kind of like the first half of the It book, focusing on the sort of younger of the characters in their youth, where they come across Pennywise and they're just going about life, being the loser club and everything, and then Pennywise wreaks havoc and everything, and they try and stop him at all costs and so forth. And it's perhaps the first time where a Stephen King sort of film has been turned into a horror that's got jump scares in it, because this time there is jump scares in it. Some of the jump scares do work and land pretty well, and then there's like lots of moments there where there's lots of memes that can go with it and everything. So yeah, but overall, I think the first It film is a good adaptation of half of the It novel. So I'm personally going to give it a 9 out of 10. On to chapter 2, which is focused on the sort of modern times, and the good thing about it this time is that, unlike the miniseries, the year where the older guys are alive. At least this time we've actually lived through that year. So yeah, so they portray the year quite accurately. All the children have grown up. You got James McAvoy playing one of them, and then you got Bill Hader playing another as well, and they're all kind of reuniting. And I think out of all of them, there's the one that doesn't quite make sense is the one where it's played by that chubby kid. I forget the name. Who ends up turning into a handsome hunk. So yeah, and they all reunite in their hometown, and they come across where Pennywise has risen again, and they try and stop him once and for all. And honestly, this one feels like it's a more laughable film than the first, because there's just too many laugh out loud moments, and I think it's unintentionally funny more than being scary. And I remember one of the jump scares was just, it took way too long building up to it, and by the time it got to it, lots of people. Well, I personally just was not surprised, because they just spent way too long building up to it, and when you know a jump scare's coming, you just don't have the same feeling of it. So yeah, so chapter 2, not the best sequel to It, but certainly not a bad film either. So I'm just going to give it a slightly lower 8 out of 10. Bringing us on to Doctor Sleep, which is treated as two things. It's a sequel to the Stanley Kubrick film The Shining, but at the same time, it's also trying to follow the book, the sort of storyline of the book more than the film. The only sort of references it has to the Stanley Kubrick film is obviously the sort of opening logo with the opening Warner Brothers logo and the themes that it uses from the film, but it's otherwise trying to focus more so with the original story than the film. And Ewan McGregor is in the film, and I honestly actually don't really remember too much from this one either, because it's been so long. And I know there was like a extended edition that was made, and also an extended edition of the original Shining as well. So yeah, sorry that I'm not able to talk about it much, but I remember it being sort of quite epic and quite pounding in places as well. And especially when they return to the Overlook Hotel, and you get to hear the Shining, a new version of the Shining theme, but it's a version that's kind of very intimidating, very powerful, and so it's kind of like you know what's about to happen and everything. So I really like it for that bit. And I think that was like the kind of like the thing that I remember most, which is kind of good because it kind of was getting towards the climax at that bit. So yeah, so I'm gonna give Doctor Sleep. Only based because I don't really remember it that much apart from what I mentioned, a respectable 8 out of 10. Finally, bring us on to the latest film that I've seen of his that came out not too long ago, which is The Long Walk. So this is based on one of his short stories, and I don't even need to explain it to you. You kind of know what it is, but I'll explain the bits that you probably don't know about it. So yeah, it's obviously about a long walk. A bunch of guys that are sort of coming of age. They go on this walk to sort of win millions and millions of pounds of money. You got Mark Hamill playing the corporal, who's basically sort of leading them, and the walk takes place over a series of days. And all the guys have given numbers, and they're sort of told that they need to maintain a steady pace and keep moving. Otherwise, if they fall behind or whatever, they will be shot down and killed. So yeah, and you got these boys that sort of like follow different sort of stereotypes. You got a guy that sort of is hopeful, a guy that kind of sort of you got a guy that's good looking and very muscular and everything, and just wants to and is also sort of hopeful. You got a guy that's kind of been like the comic relief, a guy that's a bit of a dick, a guy that's kind of like a sort of Batman kind of character, dark and brooding, which is funny because Mark Hamill's in the film. You got a kid, you got a guy that's very young, you got a guy that kind of sort of looks like he may be LGBTQ, but he's killed off very early on in the film because for reasons. So we don't really get to sort of see if he actually really was that. Um, yeah, you got a good batch of characters, and you kind of sort of stay with them for the entirety of the film. There's some flashback moments with one of the characters, and then I think, and although personally it's not the best in terms of what films have been made by that are based on Stephen King's work, I will say the ending kind of threw me. Like it was a very twist ending. Like it was an ending that I did not expect coming because by the end of this film you kind of want to know who is going to sort of live on at the end of it, and the person that they end up killing is the person I didn't think would actually be killed off, and I thought it was the person that was actually going to win the money, but no, it's someone else. So yeah, and honestly, when you got Mark Hamill playing the villain, and it's a very intimidating villain, you know you're in for a treat because he plays villains really well. Not so much his version of Chucky personally, but he plays Joker, great. He plays the Fire Lord in Avatar: The Last Airbender, great. And he plays the corporal here, who's very much as menacing as you can get, and very much as your stereotypical corporal who takes no prisoners, takes no bullshit, and kind of sort of brushes off any sort of insults that are thrown at him. The only time where he does actually feel fearful is when someone actually points a gun, and he's basically just trying to right, maintaining his composure and just trying to convince the guy to put the gun down. So yeah. So the Long Walk, and the Long Walk does have some relatable moments to me as well, and I'm gonna give the Long Walk a 7 out of 10 because it's not the best Stephen King adaptation, and because it kind of sort of sums up what you're gonna see in the film, and it's very much not all that surprising apart from the twist at the end. So yeah, but I did like it. So yeah, 7 out of 10. Which I think I did say. Yeah, whatever. So yeah, so that's basically all of or this. This is basically all the Stephen King stuff that I've seen and remember seeing. There's probably a lot more that I have seen and forgotten that I've seen, but yeah, these are the ones that, in my opinion, are the ones that have the most impact on me. The ones that I feel are very, very good, and deserve at least one watch, if not more. And I hope that we get to see more works of Stephen King adapted to film. I know there's been like tons of adaptations of his work this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing more later down the line, as well as some of it, as well as his adaptations of his son's work as well, which I hope we get later down the line as well. But yeah, that's what I think about all the things from the guy that comes from Maine. Yeah, I had to say it because it is a trope. So yeah. But yeah, that's it. That's all I've got to say. If you've seen any of his work, of his sort of adaptations, or read his books, or whatever, I'd love to know what you think. So do sound off in the comments below. Go easy on the drinking if you hear all these different tropes and so forth. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. Like, share, comment, and subscribe if you can, please. Those who are new to the channel, I do vlogs like this, reviewing stuff, doing hauls, ranting on life, and other things as well. I also do gaming videos, so straight up gameplay videos where I'm just following a game over a series of videos. Let's play videos where I'm playing a game and you get to hear me talk and do challenges and so forth. I do videos with friends where it's either gaming or we just do a video together talking about stuff. I also do funny shorts as well. See you in the next one, and other things as well. See you next one. Peace to you all. And remember, if you end up being in Maine, just remember that you might be getting killed in a very hilarious way. You might need to go on a drinking spree. And I forget the rest of the Stephen King tropes, but yeah, Stephen is king. He's great at what he does. So do check his work out. So yeah, all right, toodles.
Here's John.